Um, hey YouTube, been a while. Figured I'd make a video, doing life updates. Maybe just stuff about me. I don't know. Haven't made a video in a while, and most of it was trucker stuff, and it was a lot of it just me ranting about life on the road and the day and how it kind of sucked. um, and I'm just up late. Got off work. Um, I'm back at PSA Airlines as a dispatcher. Um, it's nice. Um, I don't know. I'm a little overwhelmed by a lot of it. Like I knew what I was getting into. I dispatched before in 2023 till 2024 a bit. I guess it was about 9, 10 months, something like that. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just still in that like getting used to it phase or something. But um, it felt like the training was good, um, but I didn't. I mean, I had days that there were problems and stuff, but a couple of diversions and you know weird messages about medical things and passengers having issues. But it seemed like this last week I had like 3 days there where I'm just like, what the fuck? Do I want to do this still? um, uh, and I mean, it really in a lot of ways isn't a hard job. Physically, it's certainly not. Mentally, I think that's where it gets challenging is when you get overloaded with work or um, have a lot of flights that you have to work on um, with multiple issues, whether they're like reroutes or um, just someone saying, "Oh, I got overfueled," or um, passenger lost their bag and we got to return the gate. I mean, just you know, the little shit. Um, but it's really when you get a reroute, or somebody says, "Hey, I'm having to hold. Here's my fuel, and does this look right to you?" And I'm having to stop everything I'm doing, or somebody calls me, and I'm still working on releases. It's just a constant bombardment of attention, distracting things, and you're supposed to go back to what you were doing, like, okay, I put enough fuel on there, I think, or I applied the right penalties, stuff like that. Um, but then, after a couple hours of stress, it's like, ooh, you might have an hour where you have like 2 or 3 flights, and you're just kind of sitting there like, this is nice. Um, so, um, I don't know. It's good to be back. I mean, if their PSA is a pretty good employer. I don't have anything to say bad about them, and same with American, I guess, because they're a part of American. Um, but I don't know. I've just had a lot of moments where I'm just like, oof, this is a lot. Um, and I mean, even for me socially, it's a lot some days because I'm a bit of an introvert, and I don't know. Trucking was like the extreme of that, where um, some days it's like I don't want to see anybody, I don't want to talk to anybody, and it was the perfect job. Like I just listen to my music, I stare at the road, and hope nobody's an asshole, and everything goes well, and I don't blow a tire or whatever. And there were days that it was nice. It's like nothing, it was just you drive in silence and with headphones on, music and stuff. But I never had to socialize, and I kind of needed it sometimes. Um, Sorry, the shower is leaking now. I'm in a hotel that PSA has put me in for a couple months until they move to Charlotte, which is cool. Um, but yeah, at PSA, it's and just any dispatch job. I think it for someone like me being kind of introverted, it's a little challenging because one, I'm new, and I like if I have a question, I got to be like, hey, this thing happened. Can you help me? Um, Naturally, the camera doesn't want to zoom in now. Come on, camera. I don't know why the fuck it did that. Either way, um, it's like I have a question, I have a concern, I've got to speak up. If I need to go use the bathroom, I got to be like, hey, can you watch my desk? And I'm having trouble remembering people's names, and it's typical stuff that being a new employee you're going to deal with. So I don't know. By the end of the day, sometimes it's just like I'm tapped out. Like, I'm like, I feel like my social meter has just gone, and my brain logistically was like barely in the green, and now it's just like, what am I doing? What like did I actually know this? Like, I mean, I know it, but it's um, yeah, and I'm not saying I know everything, but I know that I know the core material, and I do have an understanding of it. It's just, you know, when you get overloaded, it's easy to just be like, what am I looking at? Like, there's some moments where I just stare at the screen like, what? What? Yeah. Um, and that's where I guess I kind of miss trucking in some ways, because you just stare at the wheel, and drive. But then there's just some days you're driving and you're like, I cannot back this bitch up. I've been doing it 6 years, like, and I've had worse spots than this. Like, it's not even like you're in some bad shipper and receiver, and there's always old farts looking at you, the long nose Peterbilts and Kenworths, and they're just like, oh, is this young buck working for this guy, and what's he doing? It's like at a Walmart DC, or somewhere where you just have an enormous amount of room, and you just, it's just like, you did everything right, and then you just oversteered or something, and but at least you're like, well, there's nobody around. um, but I don't know, like, I've had a lot go on since April, um, when I started here, and it's been good in a lot of ways, but then it's been rough in a lot of ways. Um, I lost my uncle on Memorial Day, and that was the same day I was getting my dispatch license, or no, I'm sorry, my um, I had the test to show that I'm competent as a dispatcher on Memorial Day. Um, I didn't even realize it was Memorial Day, really. It just was another day to me. It was a Monday, and I woke up, I did a voice lesson, sang a bit, and just was like, I'm trying not to think about this test. Like, I knew it, but if I overthink about it, I'm gonna, you know, um, probably work myself to a panic and get questions wrong that are simple. Um, but I went to work like any other day. Um, I think it was around, we had one break because I think I probably did about 2.5 hours or so of just question stuff, um, and I'd gotten a call from my friend who was the home healthcare worker for him, and she called like 3 or 4 times in a row, and I was like, hey, I've got to take this. This is, she's called a couple times here, and they knew what was going on with my uncle and his health. Um, and I went out in the hallway and took the call, and she was like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, and I'm like, what, he's gone, and and I'm the one saying, like, I'm sorry for you, like, I never wanted you to be there when this happened. And I mean, I was in a panic, and then I just sort of like took a deep breath and was like, well, I can't really quit this exam thing. Um, I mean, I was grieving, but like I feel like my uncle wouldn't have been like, oh, stop everything you're doing and break down right now. Like, I feel like he probably been like, the military guy he was, just been like, we'll get this shit over with first. Like, you can cry about the broken bone, but you gotta fight like hell until you get across the battlefield. Um, and then bitch about your foot being broken or whatever. you know, um, I don't know. He was just tough like that, and I went back in, and I did the test, and did fine with it, and went to my car and kind of sat for like a good hour there just in the parking lot, like just crying, like, of all days, like, why, why did this happen? Um, and I'm not blaming him. I mean, of all days, Memorial Day is the perfect day for a veteran to go. But I think I thought I had more time to see him. Last time I saw him was when I'd come down and drove in my Hummer and had mechanical problems and my car broke down, and the transmission broke after I had just fixed it. Paid $4,000 to get it repaired, and it like made it 500 miles, and it didn't even get to the house. Like literally like 2 miles from the house, and it breaks down. So I was in a panic, and I don't know. I ended up just being like, screw it, I'm just gonna buy a car, and I bought a truck. Got a 2025 Dodge Ram. Probably a really stupid decision, not gonna lie. But the funny thing is the payments were pretty much the same as a used car, 10 years old for 10, 15,000, which I was like, I've been looking at cars for a while, thinking like maybe I gotta get something, but I'll get something reasonable. Apparently not. Like, Stellantis really wanted to sell these trucks, and having a 7% interest rate right now is pretty insane. And I don't have stellar credit either, but like for me to get a used car, it was going to be like almost 17 to 20%, and so I just it was like, I don't want this higher price tag, but at the same time, like, I don't want the stress of another car breaking down just months later and me financially not knowing what I'm doing. And but I really, honestly, I didn't want to buy a car at all, because I just bought a motorcycle after trading in a motorcycle that broke down. That it was like a $2,000 bike that I bought, and it was going to be $6,000 to repair it. Thanks, Harley. You know. But I mean, Harley, the dealership I went to treated me nice, and they gave me $9,000 for the bike to put me on something else without any money down, which was like, hell yeah. And at the time my Hummer was already broken down. For me to rent a car, it was $1,000 a month. Ubering was basically the same. Just, I was in like one of those like, I don't know what the fuck to do kind of moments, and it was like going into debt just seemed like the only logical solution. I mean, I could have been like somebody saying, well, I'll just blow $1,000 on the rental, and get me A to B until my car gets fixed, and then I'll have a car that's over 10 years old and had 2 transmissions and 1 engine, and a second engine that may be going out anytime soon. And I don't know, like, I'm sure I could have done it a million different ways, and I'm happy with the car I got. I love it, don't get me wrong. But it's just the payments and stuff. I'm like, it's not what I wanted to get into. I wanted to save money, and not even to be rich, just to be like a little bit more secure, just be like, all right, I got money in the bank for an emergency and things like that. But either way, I got off my ADHD, got off on a little side quest there, but that was the last memory that my uncle had really of seeing me. And I hope it was somewhat of a good one for him. you know, I, I, I was planning, or I thought about going down that following week, but it was like I had to work. I think I don't know. I didn't have 3 days off. It was like I got 1 day off. I would come right back, and then I was trying to go to a concert in Pittsburgh for this band that was from Sweden, and I could have phoned down and just been like, whatever, I'm gonna be tired and achy, and I'm gonna pay his bills and see him, and he's in bed and stuff. But instead, I just was like, I'll catch him next week, and I was gonna come down for these 3 days, and because his son and my younger cousin were gonna come down the week that he passed away, and that ended up being the weekend that his funeral was. I don't know. I did my fam ride on the 27th, and I mean, it was a good thing. I just kept moving. It was like I can't stop. I don't know. I think sometimes all I know what to do is just to keep moving, even though I'm grieving. And I don't know if I ever really allow myself to grieve because of that, or if I just you know, uh, if I'm okay. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know what's going on in my head sometimes and how to figure things out. But I did my fam ride, and you know, I know he had joked about how, like, you know, he wished if he was going to go out anyway that he'd jump out of a plane again, and like he was when he was a paratrooper in the 82nd, and just you know, go out that way. And I don't know. I felt like in some ways he was there in spirit, and I was in Charlotte, and you know, the first plane ride that I did from Dayton went fine, nothing spectacular, but I get to Charlotte and I'm like running to the gate, and you know, as I'm running to the gate to get on my second flight, because each flight was basically just like, you know, I had like 10 minutes in between. Um, you know, I hear his last name being called over the intercom, like they're like, you know, Gilmore, is there a Gilmore? You know, report to this gate, like we're boarding right now, and you know, and I'm just like, of all names to be hearing immediately, you know, of that. And then that second flight was, I think I did a Charlotte to Nashville. Yeah, I did Charlotte to Nashville, and you know, one of the first waypoints that we passed was Bama, and you know, he was a big Alabama fan. And, you know, then it was hard for me not to like kind of tear up on the plane, because it was like I've already heard his name. Now I'm seeing, you know, this Bama waypoint, and I mean, they're, you know, little coincidences and things, but I'm like, I don't know. It's one of those where after somebody passes away, do those things just appear? Um, you know, is it the universe's way of saying it's okay, or is it our brain's way of making sense of a loss? You know, that we're more receptive to some things that we may have never paid attention to, and that maybe we're meaningless. You know, I don't know. It's I like to think that this universe's way of being like, we're still here. You know, like, let me throw you a bone, um, and just be like, it's okay, man. You know, and I didn't mean for this video to get so long. I didn't mean to kind of go off track and just give you all a life update. I don't even know who's going to be listening to this shit. I don't know if I should start just posting random stuff on YouTube. I see all these videos like, you can be talking about anything. And I'm like, yeah, people, who's going to follow me? Um, but I don't know. I'm up here in Ohio, and there's people I work with, and they're nice. But I mean, I don't know anybody up here, and I don't really think I'll be going back to Tennessee very often, other than to see my parents. And you know, there's their own set of issues going on right now. I won't get into that. But, you know, as far as Memphis goes, where I'm from, my uncle was, you know, probably the last reason I was really going there and coming back, whether I was truck driving or, you know, flying and back and forth with this job. You know, and I mean, I told myself before, like, you know, when he passes away, I won't really have much of a reason to be here. And now that he's gone, it's like, I don't know. It's in some ways a stress relief. Um, I mean, and I wouldn't say it was a burden. It was just a part of my life. I mean, I took care of him, you know, how I had to, and whether it was just getting food, or in the end it was making sure aids and people were washing him and taking care of him and feeding him and giving him his meds. You know, and when he needed help with that, I mean, we would take him to the doctors. And when he was more independent in the house, like I was there just to take him to the doctor or just to the bank or whatever. But there was a lot of struggles these last few years. But you know, I love them nonetheless. And you know, he gave me a place to stay. He took care of me. You know, I'm eternally grateful for that. And I thought I'd feel better after he passed, that I'd just be like, I'm free. I'm free of Memphis. I'm free of, you know, this house. And now I'm watching everything there just sort of disappear and slowly being sold off and having to move out. And you know, his legacy of, you know, being a ham radio operator and a paratrooper and military guy is just, it's like, you know, one minute you're here, the next minute you're gone. And you know, I don't know. Um, I don't. I guess like I just wasn't ready for me to be like saying goodbye to that house and even Memphis in some ways. But I don't really have much there that calls me to come back. No relationships. I mean, I got one or two friends still there, but I can go visit them whenever. And right now, I don't know. I don't know where my heart's telling me to go, what it's telling me to do. I have a lot of days that I don't know what my purpose is or what my calling is in life. Um, while I like this dispatch job, I really miss just being an audio engineer. You know, just mixing bands, um, doing something I just truly love. You know, I love to just listen to music. And the struggle. I mean, the reason I'm probably not doing that or singing or in a band or something or just writing songs is I'd struggle feeling like I'm good enough at it, that I'm even mediocre. For somebody that engineered for 15 years, um, or somebody that had been writing lyrics and songs and stuff. I mean, and playing guitar. I mean, I'm not the worst guitar player. I'm not the best guitar player. I'm not the worst singer. I'm not the best singer. Um, Same with songwriting and engineering, but I could be making a living at it somehow, teaching it or doing something. But feeling that you're good enough at it, you know, it's struggle. It's a struggle for me in every creative way. I mean, even with this dispatching thing, I guess trucking just felt easy. It was no different than driving a car with a trailer to me. But I don't know. I've gone way longer on this video than I anticipated. Sorry about that. Maybe I'll start ranting tomorrow about more stuff. I don't know where I'll be. I'm not sure if I'm gonna fly somewhere and just get out of town, if I'm gonna sleep all day tomorrow or drive to my parents. But I don't know. Maybe just start making updates about life.